So who is the most underrated player in the Championship? Let's find out. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Bit of an interesting one coming at you today. Now, the other day I put this question out on the community tab, basically asking you for your suggestions of who you think is the most underrated player in the Championship. We got over 100 responses to that question. In today's video, we're going to be taking a bit of a look through some of your guys' responses, taking a bit of a deep dive into looking into some of these players so far this season. And if you'd like to see more of these sort of things, where I ask you guys a question and we sort of feedback on it, leave a like on today's video. But before we do jump into anything, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors over at OneFootball. As always, OneFootball is the best place to stay on top of everything that is going on around the footballing world. We've got quite a bit of action going on in midweek in terms of Championship clubs. We've got a few Championship games going on tonight and on Wednesday. We've of course also got all the FA Cup action which is going on as well. So your best place to stay on top of everything, get live updates to your phone whenever a goal goes in, and stay on top of all the recent stats. OneFootball is the place to do it. But without any further ado, let's go through some of these players. So the first suggestion that came in, and we had quite a few people suggesting this one, was Josh Laurent of Reading FC. Now, I think this one's quite a good suggestion, really. A lot of the time when we're talking about Reading, we go to their attacking exploits. I mean, that forward four's been fantastic for them lately. Lucas Giles been absolutely brilliant. But if we look a little bit further behind on the pitch, Josh Laurent's actually a really good shout. So we're looking here at Reading's interception so far this season. So who's doing the dirty work in terms of breaking up play. If we look at who's made the most so far this season, he comes out at the top of that list with 38 so far this season, with Andy Rinamota right behind him. So clearly there's quite an emphasis on these two to be breaking up the play and get Reading moving up the pitch as well. If we then take a look at the amount of tackles that they've made so far this season, so total tackles, I mean, Omar Richards is way out in front in the league of his own with 73, but Josh Laurent, 58 tackles made so far this season. Andy Rinamota is right behind him. If we sort of take a look at what that means in the context for the full Championship, so midfielders we're looking at here, in terms of interceptions made, Josh Laurent comes in 5th in the Championship. So only 4 midfielders so far this season have made more interceptions than he has. Interestingly enough, it is Luton Town's Glenn Ray who's made the most interceptions so far this season. Adam Nagy of Bristol City, who was also suggested by a few people, comes up very well on this list as well. 43 interceptions for him so far this season. But I thought that those two stats especially were quite an interesting showing of what he actually offers to this Reading side. So quite an interesting shout there. I agree with that one, with him being quite underrated. If we're looking for a bit of an underrated goalkeeper in the Championship, then Seny Dieng got a lot of attention in the question that I posed to you guys. If we take a look at the goalkeeper stats so far this season, let's have a look at how Seny Dieng compares to some of the others in the Championship. So one of the things that I always like to look at is how many shots on target they've actually faced so far this season. So who's actually been sort of like the busiest goalkeepers in the Championship this season, if you will. Seny Dieng finds himself in the top 5. So currently there's only 5 goalkeepers in the Championship who have faced 100 or more shots so far this season. Seny Dieng finds himself in that category. If we then look at the save percentage of the goalkeepers so far this season, considering how many shots he's actually faced so far this season, for him to be 5th in the league for that statistic bodes very well. And it's not just the amount of saves he's making, but it's the quality of them as well. You know, I think when you're watching goalkeepers, sort of the eye test is always quite important. This guy's pulling off worldies week in, week out. Daniel Bentley for Bristol City, so he got a fair few shouts in the comments of that one, and he actually pops up 3rd on this list for the amounts of shots he's faced so far this season, 109, which you don't usually associate with sort of teams in the top half of the Championship. Asmir Begovic is up there as well for the amount of shots he's faced so far this season. Actually, the amount of saves that he's made so far this season, he's 3rd in the Championship. Only 2 goalkeepers have made more. And another one that's quite underrated, really, Ryan Allsop for Wycombe. Where would they be this season without him? 86 saves he's made so far this season. Only Asmir Begovic has made more. 2 midfielders who I wanted to pick out who got quite a bit of attention on the post that I put up were Derby's Christian Bielik and Luton Town's Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. If we take a look at average match ratings of midfielders who have played more than 5 games so far this season, so obviously the stats can be a little bit skewed if the player's only played a couple of games, so more than 5 appearances so far this season. Average match ratings here, I mean, Christian Bielik for holding and defensive midfielders blows everyone else out the water here with an average match rating of 7.59. I think that people are now realising just how good he is. The only thing that's really held him back has been his horrible injury record since signing for Derby, really. You know, there was a time last season before he got injured where he was really starting to come into his own, got that horrible injury, did the same this season, now got another horrible injury. So really a shame for Derby there, because yeah, undoubtedly he's absolutely cut above that squad in terms of the quality levels there. He's absolutely brilliant. And Kieran Shrewsbury-Hall, another player who, perhaps because he's currently playing for Luton, who aren't maybe like the most fashionable club in the Championship or something like that, definitely doesn't get the recognition he deserves. He pops up second on this list here, and he has been absolutely superb for Luton so far this season. On loan from Leicester, obviously Leicester have got quite a few high quality loan players who have come into the Championship recently. Shrewsbury-Hall, I remember Preston playing Luton earlier on in this season. He absolutely bossed us in that game. Two very good shouts there in my opinion. Now this suggestion I found quite interesting for Sheyi Ojo, obviously currently on loan from Liverpool to Cardiff. Cardiff not having the best season, which is probably why he's not got all too much recognition so far this season. If we take a look at some of his stats so far this season, so if we look at partnerships in the Championship in terms of a goal, assist, to a goal scorer, Ojo and Kiefer Moore sit 6 on this list at the moment. Individually, looking at Ojo so far this season with 4 goals and 6 assists, so 10 goal contributions, really is a decent return. But what I find most impressive about him is that if we look at Cardiff's stats so far this season, so this right here is looking into the amount of dribbles that players make, Ojo completely blows everyone else in this Cardiff squad out the water. So in terms of trying to get Cardiff up the pitch in terms of a little bit of individual brilliance, 29 successful dribbles so far this season, which is almost double what anyone else in that squad has done so far. You know, if we look down someone here like a Harry Wilson, I know he's not really more of a dribbler, he's more of sort of like a playmaker or something like that, but in terms of someone who's actually willing to take the ball, run at people and get Cardiff up the pitch a little bit, Ojo here comes out really well in these numbers. There were quite a few Swansea fans in the comments of that one giving a shout out for Jay Fulton. I quite like this one really. I think that when we've looked at Swansea so far this season, especially lately, given a lot of praise to that midfield, but most of all we picked out the likes of Conor Hourihane and Matt Grimes. Jay Fulton's really the player that goes unnoticed. Once again, if we take a bit of a deep dive into his stats so far this season, total tackles from this Swansea squad, Jay Fulton's right out in front there with 63 so far this season. I think a lot of their defensive stability, you really have to praise their midfield, and Jay Fulton does seem to be the player here going under the radar. If we look at what that means in the context of the wider Championship, Fulton pops up 4th on this list for the most amount of tackles made. I mean, Omar Richards once again way out in front for this one, but a couple of people who I wanted to pick out from this list actually. Callum Styles was someone who got quite a few suggestions. I really like him. I think he's one of the best youngsters in the Championship at this point in time, really diverse with the amount of positions that he can play. And Callum O'Hare was another one that I wanted to touch on. 63 tackles he's made already this season. He reminds me quite a bit of Preston North End's Alan Brown. I mean, if we look here at the amount of positions that he's actually played in so far this season, absolutely crazy. He can play everywhere all over the pitch, but in terms of when he is playing as that number 10, he does a lot of running for the team, very much sets the tempo from the front, very similar to Alan Brown at Preston. And I mean, yeah, if we look into Alan Brown at Preston, another player who's played absolutely all over the pitch so far this season. Most recently, with the sale of Darnell Fisher, has been playing his football in at right back and actually puts up some really good numbers in here for that position. And the other player that I wanted to pick out on this list from Preston North End is Ryan Ledson. So he comes up 8th in the Championship for the most amount of tackles made so far this season with 56, but it's not just that side of his game where he's immensely improved, it's this right here. So here we're looking at key passes within the Preston North End squad so far this season. Ryan Ledson, 34 key passes he's made, which is way out ahead of anyone else. So DJ's second here with 20, who we all consider to be a really good sort of technical number 10 who looks to thread that ball through. Ryan Ledson so far this season, I think that in the last sort of 6 to 12 months, his passing range has really come on leaps and bounds, and that's quite an underrated area of his game there. So yeah, really impressed with Ryan Ledson lately. There were quite a few shouts for some Rotherham players in here. I think that this one's a really good shout. A lot of the Rotherham squad gets overlooked, but seeing their good run of form, I realise how much of their squad is decent. Something that I've definitely realised lately, you know, Rotherham recently doing the double over us now after they beat us at Deepdale. So Michael Smith, the shout in here. Another shout in here for Matt Crooks, who's been absolutely brilliant for them and a massive reason for their recent upturn in form. Another player from Rotherham who I myself am a massive fan of is Dan Barlaser. I think he's absolutely brilliant in the middle of the park. Once again, if we look at the amount of key passes from this Rotherham squad so far this season, Dan Barlaser way out in front with 34 already to his name. I'd be absolutely amazed if there wasn't quite a bit of interest in him in the summer transfer window, and that's a testament to how good he's been for Rotherham this season. Really good purchase in the summer, that one. There was a shout in here for Sammy Amiobi. I quite like Amiobi, really. Bit of an unorthodox winger, really, but does definitely come up with these real moments of quality. Shout in here for Liam Shaw as well, currently at Sheffield Wednesday. Got a huge career ahead of him. Yeah, very much looking forward to seeing how he develops his game. This right here from WGHD, I think is a very good shout. A fit Tyrese Campbell has to be a shout. Would have had 20 plus goal involvements this season. Stoke are a shell of a team without his attacking creativity. Completely agree with absolutely everything there if we take a look into this one. So Tyrese Campbell at the start of the season for Stoke City had 11 goal contributions in the Championship in 13 starts and then 3 sub appearances. His last game here was the defeat against Cardiff where he played 55 minutes. If we take a look at Stoke's form at the start of the season, very strong, loads of wins throughout here. If we then get to the point where he gets injured in this game against Cardiff, since then Stoke have won 1 match in the Championship since Tyrese Campbell's been injured. They've been scoring considerably less goals, as we can see here. And I think that goes to prove more than anything how much they really are lacking that spark at the moment. Obviously, they did try and do a bit of business in the January window, bringing in a couple of wingers. We're waiting to see how they really affect them long term. But yeah, at this point in time, Tyrese Campbell, without a shadow of a doubt, had he not picked up that injury, this would have been an absolutely massive season for him. A few shouts in here for some Norwich players. Jake Hart says Skipp has been sensational for Norwich. Also, Hanley has been brilliant. Commentators always say Hanley is slow, but he's rapid. Yeah, Grant Hanley's a really good shout, actually. I think a lot of the times so far this season with Norwich, we've really focused on some of their attacking play, but defensively, Hanley's been absolutely brilliant for them so far this season. Ollie Skipp as well, really intelligent loan signing. Pippa here from Huddersfield for under $1 million. He's a baller, Mr. Football says. Yeah, great shout there, Pippa this season. Him alongside Harry Toffolo, 2 great fullbacks. I know that Toffolo obviously got that red card at the weekend, but yeah, really have been 2 standout performers for Huddersfield this season. There are a few shouts for some Blackburn players. Lewis Travis had a few, obviously someone who we picked out on the channel quite a few times recently. Joe Rothwell, another one. Yeah, he's building up quite the collection of the goals that he scored this season. I mean, his close control dribbling is absolutely fantastic, making those runs from midfield into attack. And then we'll finish it off with these 2 shouts from Brentford, Fosu and Janelt. Yeah, 2 really good examples of Brentford's recent recruitment, really. You know, Fosu was a player who, when they originally signed him, wasn't someone who was going to go straight into that forward 3, you know, at the time, Ben Rama and Bimu and Ollie Watkins. They very much taken their time with him, allowed him to develop, get used to the setup there within training and everything like that, and as of late he's been absolutely fantastic for them. You know, Sergi Canis, another winger who's come on leaps and bounds this season, and Janelt's a really interesting one because I think that in the absence of Norgard for the majority of the season so far, you know, if you've been watching for the channel for quite some time, you'll know just how highly I rate Christian Norgard. I think he's absolutely brilliant. Last season really flew under the radar for some people, but yeah, this season Janelt's really been doing that job. I thought he was absolutely marvellous at the weekend against Middlesbrough, and yeah, like I say, another example of Brentford's great recruitment. Well guys, there we have it. There were some of the most underrated players in the Championship that you guys did suggest. I really enjoyed doing this sort of thing where I ask you guys for a question, you guys give me some of your thoughts and we look into them in a little bit more detail. If you'd like to see a few other of these sorts of videos, get your suggestions for what you'd like to see in the comments down below. But apart from that, thanks for watching guys. If you want to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. Please do subscribe for a bit of regular Championship content. We're not too far away from that 30k mark now. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.